Hey everyone, this is DevLog 1, and welcome back. Last time I introduced the game and sort of the general concept of the overall game loop and just kind of the idea of the game in general. And this time around, I'm going to try to do a lot less ums and ahs because there's nothing better than watching yourself back to catch that kind of stuff. So we'll see how I do this time around. But this time, this devlog, I have a list of things that I can report on, and I think I'm going to try to stick to that until I find a better method. Because last devlog was not quite as concise as I would have liked, and I sort of rambled on. So, this devlog, I would like to show that there I go with the ums and ahs. Anyways, there's a few notable changes. The first being you'll probably notice that there's this spot on the map that when you boot up will automatically be here. This is this is what you are going to seek out in the game. This is what I'm calling treasure right now, and you can see it's some green dots. They're supposed to represent little crystals or something, or let's say experience tokens, just a generalized treasure that you're supposed to be collecting to get stronger and more powerful. So that's the first change that you'll notice. The second change you might have already spotted is that we have health for the enemy. And that health is important because we obviously need to kill the enemy. These opponents, at least, So I have a very bare bones system of damage right now. If I turn on the colliders here, you'll notice that once the seal and the little square here collide, the number starts going down, and this is the quote unquote health bar. I'll be implementing probably a better graphical way to represent that than just some floating numbers above the enemy, but you'll see that it follows the enemy and all that kind of stuff, so it is stuck to that entity. But you can barely see there's a pixel gap between them, and you'll notice that the health isn't going down. And I will show you once this enemy is killed. Once the health has gone to zero, the enemy is gonna die. I have quote unquote die. The enemy is actually just right now, for now, as a placeholder, is just teleported to a random place in the map. Just for debug purposes. But I wanted to also demonstrate before I kill this enemy that I've implemented a currency. You'll notice all the way over here, there's a counter for fish, which, this being a seal-based game, I thought it would be fun to have fish as the currency. And so I'll go ahead and kill this enemy, and you'll notice that these little fish drop, and you can go walk over to them and collect them. I'll turn off the colliders here just so that it looks a little bit better. But yeah, so the enemy dies, and let me go searching for the enemy here. I should probably make this map smaller. There he is. I should probably make this map smaller just so that I don't have to go searching for the enemy for very long. But yeah, you'll notice that this time 2 fish dropped, and you'll notice when I collected the first fish, the counter went up, and when I collect the second one, you'll notice that our total fish count goes up by another one. So the enemy here drops a random number anywhere from 1 to 3 fish. So we'll see how lucky I get on this one. And the fish, when they drop, that looks like 2. Sometimes they stack up on each other like that. You can still notice that there's 2 of them. But the fish themselves have a cooldown timer, because I don't know if you notice that when the enemy is killed, the fish drop and they kind of move around. It's just a way to it's an attempt, a very basic attempt from me to make the fish appear as though they're like falling out of the enemy. So you'll see here when I kill this, I want you to try to notice that these fish will kind of like spring out of the enemy. And I believe that the motion is exacerbated by the character moving around. So I might try that here when I kill the enemy. But yeah, you'll see those fish kind of like started at like a center point, and then they both kind of spread out, one to the left and then one down. So we got 2 fish there. We've been getting 2 fish every time. So now we're at 6 total fish. But anyways, so that's all fine and dandy. So I'll just move the enemy off to the side. You'll also notice that the enemy is now stuck to the map, because last time the enemy followed the camera. That's not the case anymore. And so the idea behind this currency is obviously, we won't want the towers to be able to be built indefinitely, because obviously you could just build some impenetrable fortress like right off the rip, which is not how game progression is supposed to work. So I have not implemented that yet, because it's going to be helpful for me to be able to place towers down as often as I like, but this framework is basically 90% there. We'll just have a little snippet of code that says, hey, if you don't have enough fish to buy the tower, then you can't place it. So anyways, let me show you the build mode. The build mode hasn't changed from what you are used to from last devlog. These blocker towers still link up, and you can build cool little zones and all that kind of fun stuff. And that's all fine and dandy, but you'll notice that this projection changes when I go over to this resource here, that treasure that I was talking about. And you'll have to let me know what you think of the art, but you'll notice that the projection switches into this. It's two like it's one like arc of ice, and there's a bucket that is tied off, and so gosh, the ums. Anyways, when I go over here and then I place it, you'll notice that it turns from transparent to opaque. And so if I turn off build mode here, you can maybe see that a little bit better. There's kind of like a rope with a bucket and like this arc over made out of ice. And I'm not going for a necessarily complicated aesthetic, so I feel like this does enough, especially since this whole game is kind of pixelated. I don't want some intricate drilling mechanism and all that kind of stuff. But you'll notice, in addition to the fish, we have 2 buttons. This print map one is actually just left over from some debugging. I'll talk about that later. But you'll notice this Start Waves button. And right now, this Start Waves button is super, super basic. All it does is it starts the animation for this resource gathering tower, let's call it. So if I hit the start waves, you'll notice that this starts to animate. And you'll see that like the bucket drops down, fills up with crystals, and then goes up and then unloads itself. And so it'll go through this animation, and the idea is, it'll go through this, and you'll have to fend off like all these enemies coming in, trying to attack the base that you've built and whatnot, and then you'll be killing the enemies, you'll be running around collecting fish, and more enemies will be coming, just kind of waves and waves, and then once the waves are done, which I'll toggle this start waves button off, you'll notice that this disappears. So um, the the idea is that you'll go around the map, you'll find these natural deposits of this treasure, and you'll go set up shop. You'll go place this tower down, and then you'll start the waves of enemies, and they'll know to target this because the tower is placed on it. So when it comes to targeting, the enemies, when they are fully programmed up, need to know where to go. And so my next hope is to add essentially a maze solving algorithm to the game and bound the enemies to that maze solving algorithm. Now, it's going to be a little bit more complicated about that, and I'll talk about that in the big reveal of the enemies. But I have a very specific plan for these guys. It's getting more and more narrowed down, I would say. I have been struggling with how I want to deal with these enemies because, as I'll talk about later, they're going to be pretty interesting, and I think everyone will really like the idea. I'm super excited, but it's not quite ready to demonstrate yet. So anyways, the enemies need to know where they're going, and since this whole map is based off of tiles here, essentially you can represent the data as walkable tiles and non-walkable tiles. Excuse me, walkable tiles. And so, for example, these tiles here with the natural terrain are not walkable, so they have collision, and these towers are not walkable, so they have collision. And so this entire grid is represented by ones and zeros. And by the way, here, let me turn off build mode. But this tower can't be walked into. So all these are ones and zeros. Zeros being walkable, ones being non-walkable. And so this print map is actually a debugging tool that I had. It won't print anything on here. It'll actually print in my my development console. But anyways, that's what that button is for. So just kind of explaining that. But yeah, for now, that's the devlog. I hope you all are pleased with the progress. It's been a few days, but here's the state of the game. It's progressing nicely. We've got combat, super ultra intensive combat here, and we've got a super basic currency system, and we've got a goal in the game now. So I'm gonna leave it at that. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll be around for some more devlogs and game in progress. So thanks, and I'll see you guys soon.